Hey everybody, this is Josh from Musilesson here again, coming at you with another video. This one was a request that we had on the channel here, and I wanted to tell you the differences in the applications and how to play, generally speaking, Sautille and Spiccato, okay? They're very similar in their sounds, but they're different in their production, okay, and their applications, and I want you to be aware of that when you do it. Now, just to jump into it, I'm going to jump into the one that I think is easiest to get into first, and that is spiccato, okay? Spiccato is actually a bow stroke where the hair leaves the string, okay? And we'll get into that in just a minute. But it's important to know you need to have a good grip on your bow before you attempt this, okay? Because the bow's going to be leaving the string, all right? So you want to make sure that you've got good posture. Now remember, I play left-handed, and the reason I play left-handed is because I have an injured finger here in my middle. So your middle finger is going to look a little different than mine. It's going to be much more smooth. It's going to be much more streamlined. It's not going to hang like that. Yours is going to look like this, okay? So make sure, and your thumb's going to be nice and curved here, because the Sautille, or I'm sorry, the spiccato bow stroke, both of them really, generally happen near the middle of the bow, okay? You can vary it a little bit more depending on where the bounce point is of your bow, because every bounce point is a little bit different, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. Every bounce point is different, and you want to kind of focus on where the bounce point is to get maximum bounce if you're playing slowly. But if you're playing quickly, you may not want the maximum bounce, so you're going to vary the position of your bow just a little bit to make sure that it doesn't get crazy on you. You don't lose the bow, it doesn't go flying. Of course, there's an application for that later on, because there is actually a bow stroke called flying spiccato, where you want a large jump, larger than normal jump off the string, where the bow hair actually leaves the string. So let's get back into it, and let me demonstrate for you so you can play along with spiccato. The spiccato actually leaves the string. The bow hair leaves the string, okay? So it bounces up, okay? Okay? And that's what spiccato is in a nutshell, okay? And if you're just trying this for the first time, really take it nice and slow. Use mostly your wrist. You're going to use just a little bit of movement from the elbow, okay? Open and closing the elbow just a little bit, because we are doing it slowly. Okay, so let's just try that on the A string and go from there. So this is an example of spiccato, and I'm going to bounce in this direction so you can see my bow as it leaves. I'm going to get a little bit forward here as it leaves the string. Okay, so just open strings. Ready? Open A. Okay, and it's going to be a lot more wrist and a lot more finger movement than it is really necessarily forearm or elbow movement when you get going fast. If you want to do an exercise on this, if you want to try to do it a little bit slower, you can do a scale, like a G major, A major, D major. It doesn't really matter necessarily, just as long as it's one that you know that you've got memorized, so you can focus on the bow stroke of spiccato first. Okay, so for example, we'll do it on the D string, or on the D scale rather. So. Okay, and it gives kind of like a brushed, almost a shallow sound to it, and that's kind of characteristic of spiccato until you really get playing with it. Okay, so, okay, and that's spiccato. It bounces. The bow hair leaves the string. That's the difference. Now let's talk about sautille. Okay, sautille is a French word, and so actually means to jump. Okay, but here's the trick. Your bow hair is not what's jumping. It's not what's leaving the string. If anything jumps, it's going to be the bow stick, okay? Because the bow hair actually stays, for all practical purposes, on the string. You know, you might get a little bit of lift on it, but it's not something you want to be noticeable. The noticeable thing, difference about sautille and spiccato is that for the most part, sautille can be done much, much faster, okay? And here's the tricky part about this, because sautille requires much more wrist and finger than spiccato does, at least initially, okay? And because you're going to be doing it much quicker. So here's one little trick you can do. You can start doing sautille up higher in the bow and get your bow going quickly. Remember, wrist, okay? Wrist and fingers. In that respect, you may not even use all of your fingers. Of course, my injury keeps me from using my second and first, so I have to use my third involved in that. But some people use just their first and second fingers for Sautille, okay? And I'm just gonna, right? I can't really do that personally because of my injury, so I'm gonna come back down here and do it here with my third and first, and I leave my fourth finger on as well, but some people don't do that. I suggest leaving your fourth finger on. Remember, I'm using the Franco-Belgian bow grip here. Okay, I suggest leaving your fourth finger on for maximum control. Okay, all fingers really for maximum control. Okay, so once again, we're up in the middle half, or sorry, the upper half of the bow. Okay, now we're going to take it to the middle of the bow, and it's important to know where your bounce point is. Some people will have you find the middle point of the bow, you know, the point where your bow balances, but I find that that's not actually where my bounce point happens. So be careful about that. I mean, it's good to know where your balance point is, but that's not where my bounce point is on my bow. I find that generally speaking, the bounce point is roughly between here and here, roughly. And every bow's different, so you've got to find it on yours, okay? And that's the tricky part. So I'm going to go ahead and get on mine, and I'm going to start up high here. Okay, then I'm going to work my way up. Ah, there we go. Found my bounce point. Okay, so you can hear how it's much quicker, how it's got that partition sound. It's separate in there, right? Each stroke is separate, and you can hear it. But the bow hair is not actually leaving the string for all practical purposes. It's staying right there, just kind of chunking away on it very quickly. Okay, very nice and light. Don't be too hard. The other thing I would say for both spiccato and sautille is you want to play on the knife edge of the bow. In other words, you want to play on the front edge of your bow hair. So tilt your bow away from you, okay, and play on the front edge of the bow hair, okay? Now, generally speaking, that gives me more control. I do know some players who keep it more flat than forward. I like it to be a little bit more forward than flat, personally, okay? But that's the technique that I prefer and that works for me as a performer and a violinist. But yeah, obviously some people do things a little bit differently, and that's fine. This is my suggestion to you, okay? So now, while we're doing this, here's where we get a little bit faster and get into our application. Let's go ahead and play that D major scale again. Now, this is going to be quick, so I suggest using at least 4 spiccato bow sautille bow strokes, or 8 sautille bow strokes. You can even bump it up to 12 if you want to, okay? Or 16, just to get a grip and get a handle of playing this and being able to do it effectively. So for example, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we'll start on the D major scale. Okay, see what I mean? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I gave you a lead in there so you can kind of get into it. Okay, so you get a handle on that. Those are the differences between sautille and spiccato and how you would use them. Now, obviously, you can apply them differently. Okay, so you can do something like that with arpeggios, makes it sound very, very cool, but it's got that disconnected sound, but it's still very musical. Okay, so those are the applications that you would use it for. I hope this helped you out. If you got any more comments, you've got any more suggestions or requests that you'd like to do, please leave it down in the comments there. Check out our Musilesson Facebook page so you can become part of the community. There's always great stuff that we throw in there as well. And check out our Musilesson website, www.musilesson.com. I, once again, am Josh, and hope you have a great day. See you soon.